Now, obviously, today's a huge day. You must be right in the throes of galvanising support. The last count we heard from you, I think you had 6 unofficial backers, is that right?
No, because you've actually got to have 8
yeah,
to go forward. They're all
so
done.
Far.
The nominations are done. No, those are people who declared. Not everybody declares, but now we're going forward. The nomination form has been filled in and it'll be handed in at a specified time, Monday morning, 10 a.m.
And that's it? Job done? You just sit back and just wait?
Oh, no, job is not done. Job sort of begins.
Have you got to have 8 nominations or 8 supporters by Monday morning? Is that how it works?
Yes, signed up to hand in. That never used to be the rule, but because there were so many people, as you say, going forward, they changed it.
And are you confident of having enough?
I've got all them.
You've got them, so you've definitely got 8 backers.
Being very well prepared and organised. The form came out 5:30, I think it was, the night before last, and mine's done now, ready, safe.
So how many
prepared.
will be there you up against on Monday? Because there's 11 is there at the minute?
Yes. Now, I probably won't know that until Monday.
Right.
Because people might say, not for us right now, we haven't got those backers or we don't want to go forward. So that's changed sort of by the day.
So what are your chances?
Well, I am the outsider. I know that. I'm the rank outsider. But, you know, if you believe in things and if you do want to, you know, help the country, if there's things that you believe in, then I do think you should go forward. And then whoever wins the leadership wins it fairly and squarely on a vote of the fellow MPs.
Can we just ask you about the comments that you made about parents being able to withdraw their children from sex and relationship counselling? Education, which has been quite controversial, isn't it? And you're a little bit isolated now because several of your colleagues have said that you can't pick and choose the qualities, and the Chief Inspector of Schools has also criticised those comments as well. Do you regret them?
Well, I think they've been taken completely out of context. I wasn't talking about what should be taught in sex and relationship education, and I embrace people being taught about LGBT. That wasn't it. The question was what was age appropriate for very young children. That was 4- and 5-year-olds. So I said, I believe who should decide what is age appropriate for primary school kids, 4- and 5-year-olds, is the parents. And all I will say, this shouldn't be controversial.
So if the parent of a 4- or 5-year-old said, I do not want my child to have any knowledge of same-sex relationships in an appropriate form, but I don't want them to have any knowledge of same-sex relationships, you would support the parent in that?
But that wasn't... No, that wasn't the question.
No, but can I ask you that now, just to clarify?
If a parent says, for my child, who's only 4, I think the sex and relationship education isn't right, because, you know what, they're not really 4, they're only like 3. Thank you, people agree with this, then that's not the right time.
But again, it's about what's age appropriate,
exactly.
Isn't it, surely? I mean, I just think that with children, you have to get in very early and just float things in as normality, not particularly, you know, make it right. Now we're going to talk about... That's all it is, isn't it? It's just teaching children to be tolerant and to say that everybody can fall in love.
And I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But then that would be happening, you know, the parents would choose when that is. So that's all I'm saying. It is about...
But
different people will know.
You know that some parents are bigoted, or some parents have their own take on things that we might not think when we're more liberally minded. And what you're doing is a kind of allowing them to carry that on with their children, and the system never being able to break that cycle of intolerance.
Well, you know, I believe in, you know, the family. I believe in the people who've given birth to their child, who are looking after their children, for very young children who are, say, 4 and 5, having a say in that. Now...
But what do you mean by giving birth to?
Well, if they've had a child, and, well, whether they have given birth to them, whether they've adopted to them, I was in care, so it could have been somebody who was looking after the child. That is perfectly fine.
But, Esther, we have equalities legislation, that we are all equal, regardless of our sexuality.
And I agree with that.
And so, therefore, in schools, surely there has to be an acknowledgement, a straight-up acknowledgement, that you can't pick and choose what bits that you make children aware of?
But can I also say...
Because we do seem to be focusing on same-sex relationships as the bit that parents might not want their children to know. Well, what does that say to a child? I mean, you voted against same-sex marriage as well, didn't you, on a couple of occasions?
Yes,
Why did you?
Can I explain that? Because I believe that anybody can get married, and I believe that the government was doing it the wrong way round, because I thought the marriage that the state should have got involved with was civil partnerships, and that would be the first marriage. So everybody can be equal before the law, whether they're gay or heterosexual, but not get involved in changing the law for religion.
So you're not, just to clarify, you're not against same-sex marriage?
Absolutely not. I embrace that. I just didn't think it was right for the state to change religious law. I thought the state should have changed the civil partnerships law. So that was the first marriage. And if you choose to take a religious one, that was separate. So we keep the state and religion separate. But I embrace this. So this is not a question about LGBT. This was purely about relationships and sex education for very young kids. Who has that say? I think it should be the parents. And by the way, this should be non-controversial, because the previous Minister, Secretary of State, who was Justine Greening, she presided over that. Labour has presided over this. This has always been the law, because I would look at it the other way. Why would I put a teacher in a position having to choose what was age-appropriate? I think it's better that the family are choosing what is age-appropriate for their
yes,
child.
Absolutely. You know, we have age-appropriate sex and relationship education. We're not going to be teaching very young children about the birds and the bees.
Yeah.
I mean, teachers, I think we can trust them to be responsible. I think what people have an issue with here is there seems to be a distinction between same-sex relationships and heterosexual relationships. And we're making a distinction between them. And while it might be acceptable to have heterosexual age-appropriate relationships, there is a question mark over same-sex appropriate education. And I think that's where people begin to think, well, where do you stand
Bill,
here?
that is the misrepresentation. I'm not separating out the two. All I am saying across the board, so keep all sex education together, that is fine. I'm embracing LGBT, always have. What I'm saying is, but what is age appropriate? Some child that's 4, parents might think, do you know what, not now, maybe next year or the year later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but it's
parents
interesting in the
Can I
context
just
of
say
this.
we've literally got 45 seconds left, and all we've done is talk on one, and I think you've covered it all very well. And I think you've explained yourself. Well, I want to ask you, Esther, why on earth would you want to be Prime Minister if it literally you've come on a show like this and you're constantly on the back foot having to defend yourself? Sure, it's the worst job in the world. Why on earth would you want to put yourself forward for it?
You know, because you've got to believe in something. And I do believe in public, in the parents and everybody else, and we've got to make this country as best a place as we possibly can. And I've got an agenda that nobody else has, because I want to see an extra £4 billion go into school. I'll tell you why, because I believe in social mobility, I believe in empowerment, I believe anybody, irrespective of where they can come from, can go to the top. If I've come from a Barnardo's kid to be able to say, I would like to be Prime Minister, anybody can do that.
Thank you very much.
And police, and an extra £3 billion for police, which
it's a
is
lot
key.
of money. Would that come from the aid budget, the foreign aid budget?
And that means that we would have to take the foreign aid budget back down to historically high levels of 2010. It's the only budget that's doubled. And then we have to look after schools crying out for money. We have to look after police who are trying to keep our streets safe. And that's where I'd start. I just want a great Britain for everybody.